tag. Hopefully everyone knows how to do this. There we go. We have our link there. So I click on it, takes me there. Pretty standard stuff. Now, we can actually create pseudo selectors for this. So I'm going to be giving you 2 for now. Now, there are many, many more, but these are the 2 main ones you need to focus on. The rest of them are kind of generalized, and these are the main 2 that you're going to be using. So I'm going to create them here. And remember, you're using the element name. You can use the class if you want. It's not limited to single element names. Actually, why don't I go ahead and do that? I'm going to give it an ID, because again, we only have one of these on the page. I'm going to give it an ID of Google link, just like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and reference that in here. So remember, it's just the name of the selector, Google-link in this case, and then the colon. So here I'm going to go ahead and say link. Okay, so this is the first pseudo selector, and then there's also a second one. Now don't worry about what I'm typing for now. I'll explain both of these in just a second. Alright, so let's look at the first one here. Google link. Pretty much what this is saying is, if you've ever been on a web page, you know that there is a difference between before you click on the link and after. There's kind of some stylistic changes. So that's where pseudo selectors actually come into play. The website has those defined properties, and they actually change the way that a link looks before and after it is clicked. So I'm going to go ahead and do it here. Link is the unvisited link, remember? So I'm going to go ahead and give it a color of blue. And then when it's clicked, I'm going to go ahead and give it a color of red. Sorry, I typed blue there. Remember, usually the default is that it is going to be purple, like this color here. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. You can see that it's actually red now. Now, obviously, I can't really go back in time and change the link so that it doesn't look clicked. But you can see how powerful these pseudo selectors are, because you can do so many different things. And once we learn more properties, you can actually change different parts of the page, and it becomes very powerful to use these pseudo selectors. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Alright, so there we go. We've covered most of the pseudo selectors. I'm actually going to go ahead and add that hover property there back in case anyone wants to use the project files. So there we go. We've covered everything here, and we've added all of our pseudo selectors. So like I said, there's many more. I've linked a couple articles that help you to look at all of the different pseudo selectors, and most of them you're not really going to use very often. They aren't useful in any way because usually you just use some basic pseudo selectors like hover and active, which I haven't actually covered, but things like that. So you're not really going to use all of them, but I just wanted to give you an introduction to the main ones so that when it comes time to use them, you have the tools to finish the job or create that effect that you've always wanted. All right, let's move on. Today, we're going to be looking at advanced selectors. So right now we've looked at our basic selectors, so our class selectors, element selectors, and ID selectors. And we've also looked at some pseudo selectors, which is very useful. But now we're going to look at some of the more advanced selectors. Now, you're not going to use these every day. They're not used very commonly, but it just shows what you can actually do with these selectors, because there is a lot. So there's a bunch of advanced selectors, and I'm actually going to be breaking these down into 2 parts. We're going to be looking first at our basic advanced selectors. And I know that sounds a little bit contradictory, but we'll get into that in just a second. And then after that, we're going to be talking about attribute selectors, which are probably the hardest type of selector to get used to. All right, let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is how you actually set up these selectors. Now, these sometimes contain 1, 2, or sometimes even 3 elements in one selector. So I'm going to be going through these and talking about how they all work. So the first selector I'm going to be talking about is something called the adjacent sibling selector. So pretty much what this does is select every single element that directly follows a different element. So I'll show you how to set this up. Let's first take a look at our HTML page over here. Now you can see we have our services, which is our H2, and then we have an A tag. Now, first thing I want to do is actually go ahead and get rid of these 2. I'm going to actually comment them out. You can do this with Control/, just like that. So if you type Control/, it comments it, which pretty much just renders it useless. It doesn't run or anything like that. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and set this up. So I want to be able to apply styles to every A tag or anchor tag that comes directly after an H2. So the way to set this up is all you have to do is go the element that you want to